The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 31, Part 10. February 12th, 1933. God possesses by nature the creative power. Necessity to love. God, voluntary prisoner of the creature. The divine fisherman, daily catch. I was continuing my acts in the divine volition, and I felt a powerful force that overwhelmed me, unified me, identified me with the very divine works. I could say that my being had become so small as to get lost in the immense sea which I felt overflowing inside and outside of me. Its eternal waves raised me and submerged me, and I felt more the divine life than my own. And my always lovable Jesus, who brings down and stirs up, who gives death, and at the same instant makes one rise to new life, visiting his little daughter, told me, "Blessed daughter, our love is exuberant, and the more we give, the more we want to give to the creatures. Even more, in giving, our love makes us overflow from all sides, and would want to drown them with love, with sanctity, with beauty, with light, with our goodness. The more we give, the more the passion for loving them and being loved increases in us. You must know that our Supreme Being possesses, by nature, the creative power, the redeeming virtue, and the life that vivifies and sanctifies everything. Now, in creating the creation, we did it on our own, without the creature. But after we created her, our love toward her is so great that we want to continue to unfold the creative power together with her. And while, by preserving the creation, it is as if we were in act of creating it, this creative power unifies and invests the souls and continues the creation in the interior of each one. And what do we create? New heavens of love, new suns of knowledges, new seas of graces, new air of sanctity, new winds of refreshment which embalm the creature, new life ever growing of our divine will, new flowers of beauty, of holy desires, in sum, the echo of the creation of all things. Our creative virtue echoes in the souls, and with a wisdom and goodness uniquely our own, we create always, without ever ceasing. If it ever ceased, which cannot be, we would have to restrict this creative nature of ours, which has the virtue of always creating. But above all this, our divine height lowers itself so much. We descend into the depth of creatures, and there we carry out our creative virtue together with them. We don't want to do it on our own. Solitude would break our arms, and would put a limit to our creative power and virtue. In order to be able to love more, we ourselves have formed a law of love for ourselves, and have created within us the need to love. So, in us, to love is necessity, but wanted necessity, not forced by anyone. And it is this necessity to love that makes us do so many things unheard of. It makes us give in to excesses and follies towards the creatures. It would have been absurd, and not the ways of a perfect being, as our own, to create things and living beings, and not to love them. On the contrary, first we love them. We make our love run as prime act, and then we issue them to daylight as a birth, outpouring, and triumph of our love. If it were not so, the creation would have been of unbearable weight for us, and not of glory and of honor. The things that are not loved are shunned, but we love them so much that we enclose ourselves in them, making ourselves the voluntary prisoners, in order to form our divine life in the creature, and fill her with ourselves, for as much as she is capable of. And so that we may love her more, and be loved more, we want her to know it, and we want her in our company, so that she herself may see and touch with her own hand what we are operating, and how we carry out our divine life in her soul. Our love gives itself no respite, and according to the dispositions and cooperation of the creature, now we unfold the creative power, now the redeeming one, and now the sanctifying one, according to her needs, and to the correspondence that she offers to us. But all this always together with her, never on our own. We want to use the creative virtue, but we want her to know it and receive it. We want to use the redeeming virtue, if sin tyrannizes her, but we want her to feel the good that we want to do to her, and receive it with love and gratitude. We want to use the sanctifying virtue, but we want her to offer herself to receive the transformation of our holy acts into her own, so as to receive our sanctifying virtue. If the soul were not together with us, and would not unite her little crafting to our great working, it would be for us as if we wanted to carry out our crafting of love over inanimate things, which feel and know nothing of the good that they receive. And for them it would be like the far-away God, whom they neither know nor love. You must know that our love is so great, that all creatures swim and are present inside this immense sea of our love. And as if we were not content with such great immensity of this love of ours, our Supreme Being makes itself the fisherman, and goes on fishing for the tiny little drops of love of the creatures, their little acts, the little sacrifices, the pains suffered for love of us. And I love you that she spoke to us from the heart. We catch everything from inside our own sea, to take for ourselves the contentment, the happiness of the requital of the love of the creature. And we yearn for it so much that we make of it our daily catch, and we spread our celestial table. True love has the virtue of transforming things. It puts a sweet enchantment to our divine pupils, and it renders the little loving acts of the creature beautiful, gracious, and charming for us, in such a way as to capture us, wound us, and make us happy. And we make ourselves the capturers, making of her our most delighting conquest. Therefore, if you want to render us happy, and be bearer of joys and of happinesses to your God, love, love always. Never cease to love us, And in order to be more sure, enclose all of yourself in the divine fiat, which will make nothing escape you that is not love for your Creator. Fiat. February 24th, 1933. The Truth. Seed. Celestial farmer and human sower. Immutability of the divine ways. What pains and oppositions serve for. My little mind was all occupied by the many truths that blessed Jesus had manifested to me on the divine will, and each of them made itself present before me like a portent, one distinct from the other, but divine portent, not human, not of the earth, but of heaven. And they were all as though in act of wanting to assail the creature, in order to communicate to her their portentous virtue, how celestial and divine, and to transform her into it. But while my mind was occupied in this way, I thought to myself, yet, in the face of truth so celestial and divine, in which no shade of the human exists, so lovable, so penetrating, holy, filled with lights, each of them enclosing the life, the love, the sanctity of the one who manifested them. There are some who, in reading some of these truths, put them in doubt, raise difficulties. And you know it, O Jesus. Everything is known to you. And I felt all oppressed, and I longed for my sweet Jesus to tell him of my pain. And he, surprising me, told me, "My good daughter, do not afflict yourself because of this. You must know that in order to know a truth, one needs to love it. Love makes the appetite arise. Appetite gives the taste. Taste makes arise the hunger for eating one's fill, and masticating thoroughly the substance of a food, that is, of my truths. Mastication produces an easy digestion, in such a way that one feels the possession of the great good that my truth possesses and produces. And then doubts cease. Difficulties melt like snow before the rays of a burning sun. Now, if they just barely touched them without eating them with a deep study, with a love that generates the appetite, what is the wonder if they raise doubts and difficulties? Oh, how much better it would have been for them to say, "This is not food for us, nor do we have the will to eat it," rather than giving judgments. But it is known how my truths find a place more in the simple hearts than in the learned. This happened in my redemption. To my sorrow, no learned man followed me, but all poor, ignorant, and simple. You must know that my truths are seeds, which I, celestial farmer, continue to sow in the souls. And if I do my sowing, with certainty I must reap the fruit. Many times it happens to me as to a poor sower who casts his seed into the earth, and because of lack of moisture, the earth does not have the strength to eat up the seed in order to digest it and convert it into earth. And from the substance it absorbed from the seed, give to the poor farmer 10, 20, 100 times the seed it ate. Other times, while he sows the seed, because of lack of rain, the earth becomes hard over the seed, and does not find the way to let the life, the substance of the seed it encloses come out. And the poor farmer must have patience in receiving the harvest of his seeds. However, by having sowed the seed, he has already done something, and he can have hope. Who knows? A rain might give moisture to the earth, which, possessing the substance of his seed, will put out what he sowed. Or, by removing the hardness, by stirring it, he might form the channels to let his seed reproduce. So, even though the earth does not immediately produce the multiplication of the seed it received, time, circumstances, rain can produce a harvest more abundant than expected. Now, if the farmer, in spite of all the difficulties of the earth, can hope and receive an abundant harvest, much more can I do it, celestial farmer, having issued from my divine womb many seeds of celestial truths, to sow them in the depth of your soul. And from the harvest I will fill the whole world. Would you then think that because of the doubts and difficulties of some, like earth without moisture, and some like thick and hardened earth, I would not have my superabundant harvest? My daughter, you are mistaken. Time, people, circumstances change, and what today may appear black, tomorrow may appear white. In fact, many times they see according to the predispositions they have, and according to the long or short sight that the intellect possesses. Poor ones, one must pity them. But everything is in the fact that I already did the sowing. The most necessary thing, the most substantial, the most interesting, was to manifest my truths. If I have done my work, the main part has been set in place. I have found your earth in order to sow my seed. The rest shall come by itself. And the doubts, the difficulties, the pains, shall serve just like the wood and the fire would serve the poor farmer to cook the seed that was harvested and make of it his food. In the same way, they can serve me and you as sons, to make them mature in the hearts. There is a footnote here for the word them, meaning the truths, going back to the beginning of the sentence. In the same way, they can serve me and you as sons, to make them mature in the hearts, to make these truths mature in the hearts, as wood and fire, to give them not only with words, but with the practice, and to cook them with the sacrifice of the fire of one's life, so as to convert them into most delicious food, and feed it to the creatures. My daughter, had I wanted to pay heed to what they were saying about me, and to the oppositions they made against the truths I manifested when I came upon earth, I would have neither formed the redemption nor manifested my gospel. Yet the most erudite, the noble class, those who had studied the scriptures and who taught religion to the people, I let them talk, and I bore their continuous oppositions with love and invincible patience. And I made use of them as wood to the pains that they gave me. to burn and consume myself on the cross for love of them and of all. In the same way, today, if I wanted to pay heed to what they say about the truths on my divine will, I should put an end to the manifestations about it, and to the designs I want to accomplish by manifesting them. But no, let us not suffer mutability. The divine operating is immutable. The human operating has this weakness, and acts according to the appreciation it receives from others. But we, no. When we decide, there is no one who can move us, neither all creatures, nor the whole of hell. But we wait with our inextinguishable love for the times, circumstances, and people that must serve us for what we have established. Therefore, do not want to worry, and making our divine way your own, lay down the sacrifice of your life if needed, to obtain that my divine will be known and reign in the whole world. My sweet Jesus remained silent, and I continued to think of the impossibility that the divine will might reign on earth as it does in heaven. And Jesus, sighing, added, "Blessed daughter, what is impossible for men is all possible for God. And if it were impossible for my will to reign on earth as it does in heaven, my goodness, all paternal, would not have taught the prayer of the Our Father. Indeed, to have others pray for impossible things, I would neither have recited it myself with so much love as the first, placing myself at the head of all, nor would I have taught it to the apostles, so that they would teach it to the whole world as the most beautiful and most substantial prayer of my church. Impossible things I do not want, nor do I demand of the creature, nor do I myself do things that are impossible. Therefore, had it been impossible for my divine will to reign on earth as it does in heaven, I would have taught a useless prayer and without effect. And useless things I know not how to do. At most, I wait even for centuries. But I must make arise the fruit of the prayer that I taught. More so, since freely, without anyone telling me to give this great good that my will be done on earth as it is in heaven, I myself, as in a second creation, just as I stretched out the heavens, created the sun, and everything without anyone praying me to, the same with my will. In all spontaneity I said, "Pray that my will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And when spontaneously it is said, "Pray for this to happen," without anyone importuning me, it means that first I looked at everything in my all-seeingness. I pondered things well, and when I saw that it was possible, then did I make up my mind to teach the Our Father, wanting the human will united to our own, longing for it to come and reign on earth as it does in heaven. So, everything I have manifested on my will is enclosed in those mere words, "Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." In these few words are enclosed abysses of graces, of sanctity, of light, and abysses of divine communications and transformations between creator and creature. My daughter, this was the gift that your Jesus was giving to the human generations as the fulfillment of my redemption. My love was not yet content. My pains had not yet completely satiated me. I wanted, I wanted to give yet more. I wanted to see my heaven upon earth in the midst of my children. Therefore, a few days before departing for heaven, first I decided to give my will on earth as it is in heaven, and then I taught the Our Father, in which I myself remained engaged to giving this great gift. And when your Jesus is engaged, he never falls short. Therefore, do not put doubts, and if others doubt, let them do it. What do they know about how I must carry things out? I have power and will in my hands, and this is enough for me. And you remain at peace, and always follow my will. Trust your Jesus, and you will see. Fiat. March 5th, 1933. How the human will reduces the soul to shreds, and forms the little citadels in disarray, without king and without defense. Crying of Jesus. While my poor mind was crossing the sea of the divine fiat, according to my little capacity, I comprehended its value, its sanctity, and the great prodigy, that the creature, as long as she lives in it, can enclose within herself a will so holy and interminable, and becomes the bearer and possessor of this volition so holy, which encompasses and encloses everything. That the great can enclose the little, there is nothing to be surprised about. But for the little to enclose the great, this gives of the incredible, and only God can do these prodigies. Divine goodness, how admirable you are, and more than tender and loving mother, who wants to enclose herself in her child to place him in safety, and makes herself the repeater of the life of the very fruit of her womb, to have the glory of being able to say, "The child is all similar to his mother." But while my mind was delighting in the pure joys of the divine fiat, a sad whirl gloomed my joys, and I comprehended the great evil and the terrible affront that is given to God, when arbitrating ourselves, we do our own will. And beloved Jesus, repeating his short little visit, all embittered, told me, "My good daughter, the human will, it wages war against God, and wages war against itself. The weapons it moves against its Creator wound it, and its soul remains like a body torn to shreds before God. Each act of human will separates it from its Creator, from his sanctity, from his fortitude, power, from his love and immutability. Without my divine will, the creature becomes like a city under siege, which the enemies force to die of hunger, torturing it in all its members. With this difference, that the torturers that tear her members are her own will. It is not the enemies that torment her, but her own self. She makes herself the enemy of herself. If you knew the sorrow I feel when I see souls torn to shreds, each act of her will is a division that she forms between herself and God. It is to move away from the beauty of her creation. It is to become cold of the true and pure love. It is to get lost from her origin. It is to prepare for herself either an anticipated hell, if the will falls into grave evil, or a purgatory, if the evil is venial. The human will is like gangrene to the body, which has the virtue of making the flesh fall off in shreds, and of deforming the beauty of the creature. Poor souls, without my divine will, because it alone possesses the unitive virtue, which, unifying everything together, the thought, the desire, the affection, the love, the human will, gives the beautiful unitive form to the soul of the creature. On the other hand, without my will, the thought wants something, the will something else, the desire wants something other, the affection yet another, in such a way that they wrestle with one another, they brawl, they separate. Ah, there is no peace nor union without my will. The one who would put the cement so as to reunite the parts that are divided and render her strong against the evils that may arise, is missing. This is why your Jesus does nothing other than cry over the ruins of these more than Jerusalems in disarray, which instead of recognizing their Messiah, disowned him and gave him death. So is my will disowned, while it is present in their midst and within them. And they make of their souls little cities in disarray, which force me to repeat the threat, that not a stone on top of the other will be left of them, because without my will they are citadels without king, and therefore they have no one who protects them, nor anyone who defends them, or administers to them the necessary nourishments in order to do good, and not to get entrenched in evil. And I cry over their lot, and I pray that they would recognize my will, love it, and let it reign. And you, pray together with me. After this, I followed the acts that my sweet Jesus did while on this earth, and I prayed him from the heart that by virtue of his acts he would make his will known to all. And following him along the ways he covered, my mind paused in the act when my eternal love, Jesus, was crossing the fields, and delighted in looking at the flowers and in picking them with his creative hands. And I wanted to place my I love you upon each flower, so that they might change into voice and speaking flowers, asking that his will be known and loved. And Jesus, making himself heard, all goodness added. Blessed daughter, I want to tell you of my sorrows and the secret of my heart. You must know that the human will was the most piercing nail of my heart. In going through trails and fields, I would look at the flowery fields, at the trees loaded with fruits, and I would feel the joys of my creation. And those flowery fields symbolized for me, more than flowers, the beauties, the liveliness, the freshness, and the lovely complexion of the creature, and I rejoiced. But soon the nail of the human will would make me see them transformed into withered, discolored, parched flowers, bending over their stems, in act of dying, which, instead of fragrance, had changed into bad odor, and the fruits of the trees, unripe and rotten, symbol of the evil to which the human will reduces the creature, the most beautiful work of our hands. I received a sorrow, and those flowers snatched tears from my eyes, because I felt, penetrating ever more deeply into me, the nail of the human will. And my sorrow is so great that I await your I love you, asking me that the good of my will and the evil of the human will be known, so that mine be done and theirs be abhorred. Many times I look at the azure heavens, studded with stars, and the sun with its majesty, dazzling with light, dominating the entire earth, symbol of the heaven of the soul, and of the sun of my will, which was to dazzle within this heaven so enchanting, and was to dominate with its light the heaven of the soul, and the beautiful flowery earth of their bodies. And my heart had leaps of joy. But no, those were brief instants. The nail of the human will would soon enter the field, and forming clouds, pitch black, loaded with thunders, lightnings, hail, would obscure the sun, and take away the beautiful sight of the serene heaven, and unloading itself over the poor creature, it devastated the heaven of the soul and the earth of their bodies, casting desolation and horror everywhere. I can say that I took not one step, when I lived down here, in which the nail of the human will would not pierce me through. From the moment I was born up to my death, that was precisely what formed my harshest and continuous martyrdom, because it transformed before me, from beautiful to ugly, my most beautiful creative work. And in everything I did and suffered, my aim was always at the human will, to place it in safety. And oh, how I love one who calls my acts, unites herself together with me, and on the stake of my own sacrifice and of my love, sacrifices herself in order to obtain the great good that my will be known and dominate the human will, font of all the evils of the poor creature. Therefore, always together with me do I want you. Never leave me alone, so as to be able to repeat my life within you. Fiat. Deo gratias. You have reached the end of volume 31. Fiat.